inquiry to investigate rights violations, including massacres and sexual violence in the north and south of Kivu in the east of the DRC. The former Prime Minister of Sudan, Abdallah Hamdok, has called on South Africa to assist Sudanese to engage in a dialogue with the aim of ending the war in that country. Hamdok says not much is done to return Sudan to democracy. He believes that South Africa's involvement will prove to be beneficial.
And we would like South Africa to get involved more actively in our case. His Excellency, the President Cyril Ramaphosa. And he assured us that South Africa will definitely be involved in the Sudanese conflict, help us address this. There is a lot of history between our countries. South Africa has an excellent, unique experience that can be extremely useful to us.
South Africa's Democratic Alliance leader John Steenhuisen has confirmed that he will contest for the leadership of the party as he approaches the end of his term next year. Speculation has been rife that some influential people in the DA are pushing for his candidacy for a third term. Steenhuisen says he would like to continue to lead. He was speaking on the sidelines of the party's 25th birthday party. Steenhuisen says polls have shown that his leadership team has grown partly since taking over in 2019.
I love the Democratic Alliance. I think that I inherited a party in 2019 with a leader that had walked off the job, with the party sitting at 16% in the polls, and many people said the death of the DA. And we've been able to turn this party around to the point now where it's a party of national government. I'd like to continue. I'd like to finish what I've started. And certainly the local government elections, I think, would be a very good ending point for a particular leadership career. And so I'd like to lead the party into the local government elections.
Basic Education Minister Siviwe Gwachube says South African schools have become places of violence and fear. She says schools should provide safe environments for learners. Gwachube was speaking during a joint signing ceremony of the Safe Schools Protocol with the Ministry of Police in Cape Town. The initiative aims to ensure safety at schools, especially those in crime hotspots. Gwachube says violent crimes like murder and rape remain a challenge in schools.
During the 2023-2024 financial year, there were 28 murders within our basic education institutions. Shockingly, near half occurred in KwaZulu-Natal, and 46% of these murders, those involved learner-on-learner violence. 2/3 of rapes in our schools also involved learner-on-learner violence, and more than 11,000 burglaries took place during that financial year, and some ranging from the theft of critical teaching material to even things like basic food items from our school nutrition program.
Lastly, the UN Human Rights Office says Israel has weaponized food in Gaza, calling it a war crime. The Rights Office says over 410 people have been killed trying to reach aid points run by the US and Israel-backed GHF organization. The BBC's Hugo Pachega.
The health authorities in Gaza say at least 20 people were killed earlier today. Again, another shooting that was involving aid distribution in Gaza. The Israeli military saying that it is reviewing the details of this incident. But again, what we're seeing here is what the United Nations has said. It is the weaponization of aid. You have a very limited amount of aid being handed out through this new mechanism. And you have tens of thousands of Palestinians who are desperate for aid.
Recapping on your top stories, the UN-mandated commission investigating suspected human rights violations and war crimes in the DRC cannot proceed due to a funding crisis in the UN Human Rights Office. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News, the African perspective.
All right, and coming up in your sports news this hour, we look into the economic impact of basketball on the African continent, and Leeds United have signed Slovenia centre-back Jaka Bijol on a 5-year deal from Udinese. Details of these and other stories coming up at 4:30.
The Morning Switch Weekend. with the Shy Guy.
Matuka Wanji Nonse, Zukani, the Shy Guy, a morning switch.
Have you ever listened to a song and then it gives you goosebumps? Cause it takes you way back in the 80s. My goodness. Yay. Woo. Hey, baby. You hear Yvonne Chaga Chaga there. I wanna talk to the DJ. And then the DJ goes like, hey, baby, I've got you on the other side. Huh? There were no WhatsApps then, right? There were no sliding in the TMs at the time. Oh, man.
Your weekend mornings are activated with the Shy Guy on the morning switch.
It is a very good afternoon to you, Kenya. Good afternoon, Senegal, Eritrea. Good afternoon, Botswana, Nigeria, Ghana. Good afternoon, Somalia. Good afternoon, Africa. Welcome to Africa in Business on Channel Africa. I'm Thami Ngubeni. This is where you get the African perspective. It's where we meet to look at the latest in news, sport, and business. We are broadcasting this afternoon live from the Radio and Digital Sound Broadcasting Summit Africa 2025, taking place at the Wanderers Club in Johannesburg, South Africa. The theme this year is the future of radio and audio services, pathways to successful A to Z transformation. This is here where industry leaders, captains of the medium, policy makers, broadcasters, content creators are gathered to chart a way forward for what audio visual is going to be looking like in the future and gleaning from the technology of the day. Welcome to it. This is Africa in Business on Channel Africa. A lot in store for you this afternoon, including a look at the US Africa Business Summit, the China Africa Economic Trade Expo, and the latest report coming out of Greenpeace.
Connecting Africa to the world. Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni brings you the latest insights on Africa's economy. Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Welcome to it. This is Africa in Business on Channel Africa, keeping you abreast of all the global happenings as far as business on the African continent is concerned. We start off this afternoon with a look at the US Africa Business Summit that is currently underway in Luanda, Angola, as all eyes are on the evolving dynamics of one of the world's most strategically important relationships. More than 1,500 delegates, including African presidents, heads of government and ministers, senior U.S. government officials, as well as leaders from the United States and African companies, have gathered at this meeting. The 2025 summit sessions are covering the full range of opportunities to expand U.S.-Africa trade, investment and business relations. The 4-day event ends on Wednesday. Phil Nilo is with the U.S. Embassy and joins us live now on the line. A very good afternoon to you. Welcome to Africa in Business.
Very good afternoon. I just want to make a correction. I'm not with the U.S. Embassy. I am an independent commentator.
An independent commentator. Thank you very much for that clarification. So what do you see as the significance of this US-Africa Business Summit? There's been a lot of activity as far as geopolitics are concerned, and it's not business as usual as far as the continent and the United States is concerned.
Definitely it's not. I mean, this has been really huge for Angola and for the entire continent. There are about 5 to 6 African presidents here in this summit. Some of them are still here. Only Angolan president has left Angola because he's participating in a summit in Brussels. But then we also have a delegation from across the continent, also delegation from European Union, and of course the United States of America that has a huge delegation composed by Mr. Bolos, who is President Trump's envoy to Africa and Middle East, and then we also have the highest ranking official of the African Affairs of State Department. And beside, of course, members of the government of the United States government, we also have some agencies that are those that actually carry out business with the private institutions across the world, including Exim Bank, DFC, USTDA, and also USTR.
So there are more than 1,500 delegates, including the various African presidents which you've highlighted, and many of them still being there. There are various heads of government as well as ministers and senior U.S. government officials and leaders from the United States and African companies have gathered at this meeting. Why is it important for these key industry leaders and decision makers to really convene? And are you convinced that all the relevant heads are there, the individuals who are able to make decisions that can be acted upon, that this is not going to be just another talk shop?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, this was one of the highest point of during this summit. We had the head of the African Union here, the Secretary General of the African Union, who actually raised this issue, this concern about the United States wanted to do business with the African countries, the same time that they are imposing new restrictions on visa for some African countries. And the answer came immediately from Mr. Troy Fitrell, who is the head of the African Affairs at the State Department, who assured Africans that there has been no further restriction on African countries in order to do business with Africa or Africans traveling to the United States. And his perspectives, what they are trying to do is to have a reciprocal agreements with all African nations. And whatever was leaked by media is not something to be taken seriously because it is not an official document. He further said that they are now involving in negotiations with several African countries in order to have free trade deals because this Trump administration is very much focused on investment, on trade, and that's what they want to do. And lastly, he announced that, according to them, whenever they are doing the assessment on U.S. embassies across the continent, they are looking at trade perspective. If an embassy is really doing this, so they are positively pushing forward the Trump administration's agenda.
What would you highlight as some of the key challenges that this business summit is seeking to address? And do they hope to come out with concrete actions moving forward?
In my perspective, let me say frankly, I think that what hinders the ability of Africans to do business with a superpower like the United States or even with the European Union, I don't think it's actually on foreigners. It's on us. That's my perspective. Because here, for example, here in Angola, we have a lot of companies that want to do business with the United States. They have open doors to do business with DFC, with the Exim Bank, or even export goods from Angola to the United States. But when it comes to actually, make this reality, they present no capacity to do business with the United States companies. I think this is really a huge challenge that we in Africa have to overcome. There are many Angolan companies here, and I have spoken to some of their CEOs, and their problems is got to do with their own organization, like having the accountancy right, having proper documentation, and put aside corruption or bribery. That is the biggest challenge that we have in Africa. But I mean, there is a lot of money. For example, Exim Bank just announced that they have about $100 billion in order to invest in Angola. But it is up to African countries, African companies to present real deals in order for them to accept funding.
And speaking about Angola, it is a thriving emerging market. There are a number of investment opportunities, and many multinational U.S. organizations are home there in Angola and have made themselves domiciled there. You've also strengthened ties with the United States through a trade and investment framework agreement that's aimed at fostering greater trade and investment. What are the learnings that can be taken out of the strategies that you have followed, as well as what other African countries can do to leverage off what you as Angola have done?
Once again, I go back to what I just said. I mean, we have to organize ourselves because I've been following a lot of U.S. delegations, trade delegations coming to Africa, and in particular to Angola, in order to do business. And what happens is that they find a lot of obstacles, like, for example, transparency. Transparency is really big challenge on the continent. People, whenever they are doing business with the European or American companies, they think that they are doing with counterparts here in Africa, where we are used to accept, for example, bribery, and this is not something that they want to do it. Several American companies that accept briberies here in Angola have been taken to court in the United States, and they end up paying millions of dollars to the U.S. government. That is, for me, the biggest challenge, and we have to overcome this. Otherwise, we are not moving any further.
Thank you so much for your insight there, Phil. Very necessary perspective that you brought to the sense that Africa has to be proactive as to what is the value proposition that the continent is offering the likes of the United States, and not just wait for whatever's available, but really say, this is who we are, and here's how you can leverage it, and how we can make this a symbiotic win-win relationship between the continent and the United States. We thank you very much for your insight and your time this afternoon, Phil.
Definitively, if you just have a second, just wanted to highlight also one point that is really key on during this conversation, and it has been happening since yesterday. It's got to do with the U.S. investment on the Lobito corridor. Here again, let me tell you, how are Americans coming through with investment on Lobito corridor through European Union companies? It's not directly giving money to Angolan companies. Why? Because they are suspecting that somehow there will be lack of transparency. So they are actually bringing European Union, European companies to Angola in order to leverage the Lobito corridor. So that's just an example. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
Oh, thank you very, very much. Appreciated there. That is a commentary on the US-Africa Summit that's currently taking place in Luanda, and really a big challenge for African countries to make sure that they're proactive and have some tangible value add that they can bring to the United States. And there, Phil, our guest, highlighting the investment that has already been made on the African continent, infrastructure being very, very key to that. That is Phil Neal. He is an independent commentator joining us at 20 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African Time. This is Africa in Business on Channel
In
Africa.
this episode of Channel Africa Conversations, Peter talks to Dr. Thulisile Buda, an academic, author, and an expert in indigenous knowledge systems. Join us for a compelling discussion on preserving African languages and traditions in the digital era. Dr. Thulisile unpacks the role of educators, explorers, and how technologies like AI can support cultural preservation, and challenges us to rethink how we honor African heritage. You can find the episode on YouTube, SABC Plus, and on our website, channelafrica.co.za. This episode is a must-listen for educators, creators, and change makers across across the continent. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
It is exactly 20 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African Time. This is Africa in Business on Channel Africa. We are broadcasting live this afternoon from the Radio and Digital Sound Broadcasting Summit Africa 2025, taking place in Wanderers Club, Johannesburg, South Africa. It really is a gathering where many African countries are represented as we look at the future of radio broadcasting and perhaps even beyond radio. It's really about audio. And what is the audio industry morphing itself into? How are we going to be leveraging from artificial intelligence, the prevalence of podcasts, and really different streams and different platforms that are forming something new? We don't quite know what it is yet, but we do know that certainly change is upon us. Also really looking at the business of radio, how to monetize this. But let me bring on to the conversation this afternoon one of the panelists here this afternoon. It's going to be a 2-day event, by the way, today being day one. She is Managing Director of Kakasi FM, Menentle Dlamini. A very good afternoon to you. Welcome to Africa in Business. Good to have you with us.
Thank you for having me, Thami.
So what are your first impressions here? I mean, earlier on, because I was also moderating the sessions, I asked for a show of hands and I asked how many of you are from outside of South Africa, and literally almost the entire room had their hands up.
Yeah.
And so it was really encouraging to see all of Africa just converged here. What have been your impressions thus far?
My impression is that we're really looking to collaborate. We're really looking as a continent to find the answers, and we are really looking to find answers of how to keep radio alive, which is a very important media platform in the sense that it's accessible to all. Now, as you mentioned, with all the changes that are happening, technology is moving very quickly and very fast, but in certain areas it isn't. So what do we do in a situation where we have radio that is accessible to all, but then there are all these digital platforms that are causing us to think about transforming ourselves into something else? And I think that's what today is all about, is how do we tackle this as a continent? Because we know what is happening in other continents, but we are different. Our landscape is very different. So how do we make sure that we stay relevant?
Tell us a bit about your platform that you are Managing Director of, Ikakasi FM.
So Kakasi FM is a regional radio station. It's commercial. It's based in KwaZulu-Natal.
South Africa.
Yes. I was mentioned that, in a province called KwaZulu-Natal. It broadcasts in 2 languages, both isiZulu and English, and it targets the young black adults of the province, which is KwaZulu-Natal.
And monetization has been very key in the discussions that we've had today. How have you, as a regional radio station broadcasting in an indigenous language, isiZulu, and quote-unquote a universal language, English, how have you managed to monetize that, and what are the challenges that you've experienced?
I'll start with the challenges. It's getting the ones with the bucks to understand our consumers, our audience, and also understanding them, what makes them tick, what are their interests, and whether they do have spending power. So we are constantly having to speak about them and why they are important and why brands should actually invest in them. But how we are monetizing is we're really speaking to the uniqueness of our audience. What makes them unique? You know, what are you not tapping into, that you could be tapping into? But also, we've seen ourselves as just more than a radio station. We've branched off to creating or growing our ecosystem. Obviously going into digital, because digital seems to be the big word lately, but also going into eventing, partnerships, influencer marketing. So, I mean, your presenters are your influencers. They have influence.
That's right.
Within the community. And also just looking at doing activations on the ground. Because remember, when you're regional, right, you're so close to your audience that they feel entitled to you. So they feel entitled to be able to touch and experience the brand.
And isn't that what the magic and the power of radio? And I think being able to keep that essence even as you morph into whatever radio is going to be, that audio experience. But we thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and just giving us some insight into the work that you're doing and really what we're doing here at the Radio and Digital Sound Broadcasting Summit. That's Mina Dlamini, the Managing Director of Ikakasi FM. It's 26 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African Time. In just a moment, a look and a conversation with Oxfam on the latest Greenpeace report.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
Thank you for staying with us. This is Africa in Business on Channel Africa. Now, there's a new global survey that reveals that most people support taxing oil, gas, and coal companies to fund climate-related loss and damage. It also shows widespread concern that governments are not doing enough to curb the influence of the ultra-wealthy and polluting industries in politics. This report was commissioned by Greenpeace International and Oxfam. The survey was released during the United Nations climate talks in Bonn last week. And to speak to us more about the survey, we're joined by Ashfaq Khalfan, Director of Climate Justice in Oxfam America. Thank you so much for your time and good to have you with us on Africa in Business.
Thank you for inviting me.
So what would you highlight as perhaps some of the most surprising insights from this global survey on the public attitude towards fossil fuel taxation as well as climate justice?
It was surprising the level of support that we saw for taxes on oil, gas and coal industries. 86% support taxing them to use those funds to provide that to communities who are most impacted by the climate crisis. It was surprising that just the level, we asked people who should be taxed for supporting survivors of climate disasters, and 2/3 of people said it should be oil and gas companies. Only 20% said businesses in general, and only 5% said working people. We also found it really interesting how almost 2/3 of people said that the fossil fuel industry and super rich had a negative influence on politics in the country. I will say that this survey was conducted in 13 countries in the world, which have a majority of the world's population. In Africa, we did them in South Africa and in Kenya.
I wonder what these results actually reveal about public trust in government when it comes to regulating powerful, polluting industries. Your insights on that?
Yeah, it does show that they feel that the governments are letting the oil, gas and coal industry have run roughshod over decision makers. They don't feel that the super rich and oil and gas companies are being held to account. So I think there is this clear suspicion that there's corruption, that there's more than just corruption, also just influence, too much influence being given to the oil, gas and coal industry. And by the way, one thing that's really interesting is that the results, we found them cross-partisan. For example, in South Africa, there was no difference between supporters of the ANC Democratic Alliance. You'd have expected the difference, but there wasn't any. And if you look at the United States, 63% of Republican supporters support taxing the oil and gas industry. So while Trump is saying drill, drill, baby, drill, his supporters are saying pay, baby, pay.
That's really interesting. Thank you so much, Ashfaq Khalfan, for sharing some of those insights that are coming out of this report. And one just wonders how surveys of this nature are going to be shaping how governments and international bodies actually prioritize climate justice going forward. But thank you very much for putting us in the know. And as you say, not drill, baby, drill, but pay, baby, pay. Thank you, Ashfaq. He is the Director of Climate Justice in Oxfam America, Ashfaq Khalfan, there on the latest survey conducted by Oxfam and Greenpeace. Thank you so much, sir. You have yourself a good day further. It's gone exactly 4:30 p.m. Central African Time. Let's head over now to our economics desk to get the latest economic indicators with Bundle Headbush.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thanks, Thami, and a very good afternoon to our listeners. In our final look at the indicators this afternoon, $1 is trading at 18 Rand in South Africa. In Botswana, it's trading at 13 Pula 36. In Namibia, it's 18 Namibian dollars. The Zambian kwacha is trading at 23 kwacha 20. In Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 50. In Ethiopia, at 136 birr 60. Uganda, 3,587 shilling. And in Tanzania, it's at 2,653 shilling. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,549 naira. In Egypt, the dollar is trading at 50 Egyptian pound 67. In Tunisia, it's trading at 2 dinar 93. In Algeria, at 129 dinar 60. In Morocco, the dollar will cost you 9 dirham 3. In Angola, the dollar is trading at 912 kwanza, while the Congolese franc is trading at 2,853 to the US dollar. At our last look at the commodities this afternoon, gold is trading at $3,312 per ounce, while platinum is at $1,293 per ounce. Brent crude oil is at $69.09 a barrel. And those are your business news this afternoon. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or give us a call on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Bontle Headbush.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
And for the latest from the business of sport, let's head over now to the sporting desk.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
A very good afternoon from the sports desk. I am Musibudi Makura with the latest sports news at the Sawa. So according to Gimesola Abudu, the Nigeria's NBA vice president, the Basketball Africa League represents more than just a sporting event. It also serves as a catalyst for integration as well as economic development on the African continent. She was speaking on the sidelines of the conclusion of this year's tournament. The finals were held at the Sunbet Arena in South Africa's capital city, Pretoria. So according to the BAL is far from being merely a sporting spectacle. It's also about establishing itself as a growth vector on the African continent.
The presence of the NBA on the continent via the work we're doing with the BAL is really showing sports as a business. It demonstrating the economic impact of investing in sports, right? It shows you how when you have an event like this, right, what is the impact on the different industries? How many jobs are created? How many jobs are impacted during that period? What it's doing is it's serving as a template for other sports to see that if we build this intentionally and build the ecosystem, it's there's so much reward. I mean, when
Right, so the BAL was established back in 2020, and this year the league celebrates 5 years. Despite being in its infancy, Budu says the league has created opportunities for players to play basketball on the African continent, further defining the ecosystem of basketball.
What it's doing is creating an avenue for basketball professionals to play on the continent, and it's helping us further define the ecosystem of basketball. Now that you have a league, I mean, just think of all the different things coming out of it, whether it's broadcasting, right? The sports marketing element of how do you promote and position a league. Those are different things that we didn't really have exist on the continent before, and BAL doing that, it's showing what is possible.
On to football news now. South Africa's Mamelodi Sundowns team have already secured over $11.3 million this after playing 2 matches at the FIFA Club World Cup that is ongoing at the moment in the USA. So in addition, Sundowns as well as other 3 African teams will receive a whopping $10 million in participation fees. And should Mamelodi Sundowns reach the round of 16, they will win a further $7.5 million. And any teams at this year's competition reaching the quarterfinals, they'll walk away with $13.125 million. The semi-finalists will walk away with about $21 million. The finalists, $30 million, while the winner of this year's FIFA Club World Cup will win a whopping $40 million. Meanwhile, Sundowns will be in action in their final game of the FIFA FIFA Club World Cup, at least the group stages, on Wednesday against Fluminense, looking, of course, to qualify for the quarterfinals, the last round of 16 of this year's competition. Leeds United have signed Slovenia centre-back Jaka Bejol on a 5-year deal from Udinese. Now, the 26-year-old joins for an undisclosed fee and also becomes Leeds' second recruit after forward Lucas Nemce joined on a free transfer from Wolfsburg. Now, Bejol scored 2 goals in 37 appearances in all competitions for the Serie A side last season. Bejol has also Champions League experience and has also won 63 caps since making his Slovenia debut at the age of 19 back in 2018. And continuing with the theme of the transfer window, West Brom Albion have signed defender Nat Phillips from Liverpool for an undisclosed fee. The 28-year-old, who managed to make just 19 Premier League appearances for Liverpool in his 9 years on the books of the Anfield side, joins the Championship club on a 3-year deal. Now, Phillips has vast experience in England's second tier, helping Derby County avoid relegation just last season after previously featuring for Bournemouth as well as Cardiff City at that level. Now, West Brom sporting director Andrew Nestor said Phillips would bring valuable experience to the side that finished 9th on the table last season. It's 16:37 p.m. Central African time. That's a wrap of your sports news this hour. There'll be more sporting updates tomorrow morning on Africa Rise and Shine. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or give us a call. The newsroom line is +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Mosibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channel 628. Stay ahead with Africa in Business, where Thami Ngubeni unpacks your go-to source for Africa's economic trends and development.
It has gone exactly 4:38 Central African time. A very good afternoon to you, Africa. If you've just joined us, you've been missing out on a lot. We are broadcasting live this afternoon from the Radio and Digital Sound Broadcasting Summit Africa 2025 at the Wanderers Club in South Africa. All of Africa has convened to map up the future of radio and indeed audio, how the current technology, the advent of artificial intelligence, the plethora of platforms that are available, how those are impacting how radio is being done. Joining us this afternoon is Mr. Benjamin Pius. He's the CEO of Broadcast Media Africa, and they are the ones who are convening this summit in partnership with the Southern Africa Broadcasting Association, and they are hosted as well by the SABC, the South African Broadcasting Corporation. Mr. Pius, good to have you with us.
Thank you, Thami. Good to be here.
So what is it that brought this particular conference and summit to mind, and why is it important for us to be having these type of conversations?
That's a very fantastic question, Thami. As you know, radio is important. Radio is key. In the continent of Africa, 80% of the people that actually get what the broadcasters do in terms of consumption, they get it via radio. Be it in the urban or the rural area, radio cannot be discounted. Hence, we thought, every now and then when we go and do this stuff, we do it via TV. We always focus on TV. But radio is what the mass audience actually consume. Radio is the key. We go for radio. That's why we've decided. And we are bringing together all the leaders across Africa, just like you said, in the radio space to come and chart the way forward for radio in the digital ecosystem.
And talk to us about some of the key outtakes that have come out for you in the summit thus far.
Well, it's been impressive. We've had the movers and the shakers of the industry coming to Johannesburg to talk about the challenges that they are facing. I mean, I was listening to a gentleman speak about what they are currently doing in Zambia to meet the issue of what you will call load shedding here, which is basically power outage. And because of that, they are able only to broadcast 3 hours a day because there's no power. But they found a convenient way to counter this, a convenient opportunity to go for solar and use solar to power their broadcast station. That in itself is something that a lot of people across the continent will be looking at. How do we make sure that the infrastructure of radio is still there across Africa? Because this same issue you found in Zambia is what you found in Zimbabwe, in Nigeria, in Ghana. It's across the continent. Hence, something like that is what we are also looking at. Another issue that comes to mind is how we can, as a continent, come together in terms of collaboration to make sure that we are able to sort out the problem the African way, not the European way, not the American way, the African way. That is where the leaders are gathered together to discuss, and I'm glad to say that we are getting solutions, and we are going to be getting there very soon.
And it's very important for you to say, find solutions the African way,
Sure.
because there are some problems and challenges that are uniquely African and will need to be approached then from an African perspective. So who better than Africans to not only discern what their challenges are, but also then to find solutions to those challenges.
You couldn't say it better.
Well,
Absolutely.
thank you very much. And our other guest this afternoon is Mr. Francois Retief, COO of Iono FM. First and foremost, what you have done with Iono FM is quite and was quite ahead of its time, even when you began. But for those who are perhaps outside of South Africa who don't understand or know what Iono FM is, put us in the know.
We started with a podcasting and streaming platform in 2008. And I must say, it's also an African solution because we've gone in a different direction to what the rest of the world were doing at the time. And at this point, we've got thousands of podcast shows. We've worked with the SABC for a long time. That's how we know Channel Africa, and we've always been friendly with you guys. But also international broadcasters like BBC and Deutsche Welle. We've got over 150 radio streams. And the exciting thing over the last 2 years or so is how the ad revenue has been taking off. And once more, we've got a different way to the way that the rest of the world is trying to monetize digital audio, where they're going for a purely programmatic way where machines buy inventory on a marketplace. And we decided to go back to the way that radio has always worked, but give it a digital spin, in that you have advertisers that advertise on the radio stations, the digital streams, the podcasts of the audiences that they know. So there's a very close relationship. Once more, in Africa, it is about relationships between the advertiser and also the content producer or the media group, which is very beneficial, and which, coming back from Radio Days Europe in Athens, a lot of people in Europe and in the US were very excited to hear they're now starting to look at a solution which we've been using for the last 5 years.
And on that very note, you started in 2008, and it really wasn't common parlance to be speaking of podcasting. But how do you forecast and foresee a trend? Because I believe we are once again at a threshold where digital technology is at a space where one not only has to be au fait with the mediums of the day, but that you're actually able to throw forward into what tomorrow could possibly be looking like. How do you do that?
I think the main challenge at the moment is there are numerous large platforms which is moving into the digital space. You've got the YouTubes, the Spotifys, and a lot of radio stations are struggling with finding platforms that represents them well. There are, for national broadcasters, there are strategic concerns. So I think I'm hoping that we will move beyond sort of a very tightly consolidated ecosystem back into a space where there's more options, where radio stations and broadcasters will have good options that they can choose from, where they can be closer to the audiences, have control over their own content distribution. And I think that's already starting to move. So I would see in the next 2 or 3 years, you'll see a move away from a lot of these platforms, and more broadcasters taking back more control over their ecosystem, their audience, and how they distribute their content.
Because radio is, after all, a business, and it is the business of radio that we're focusing on here. Great content, but how do you monetize that content? Do you have a footprint on the rest of the African continent?
We are starting to build it. We're still very strong in South Africa, definitely leading. And as you say, in South Africa, podcasting and also radio stations on the internet, podcasting from radio stations on the internet has had a very early start. So we've run a couple of campaigns in the last year. You've got brands like, for example, Standard Bank, which are running Pan-African campaigns. It's picking up, not as fast as I would like to see, but definitely starting to happen.
Gentlemen, we're going to leave it at that for this afternoon. It's day one of 2 days of the Radio and Digital Sound Broadcasting Summit Africa 2025 taking place at the Wanderers Club in Johannesburg, South Africa. It has gone exactly 4:46 Central African time. We'll be back in just a moment as we look at women's stature. Also, an interesting conversation coming up with Standard Bank. They've led a delegation to the SA China conference, and we'll find out what the outcomes of that have been. Do stay with us.
Vue d'Afrique avec Joël Mouteba.
Alors peut-on considérer cette décision comme un désengagement durable des États-Unis vis-à-vis du développement africain ou s'agit-il d'un simple réalignement stratégique?
Bon, ça peut être les deux à la fois. Donc, au lieu de donner de l'argent à la Banque africaine de développement pour partager en vrac, ils préfèrent maintenant donc cibler les pays partenaires en Afrique. Ça, c'est pour le réalignement stratégique. Alors, et aussi, ce n'est pas un désengagement durable, mais je pense que dans les 2 ou 3 prochaines années, il veut d'abord remettre de l'ordre dans ses affaires.
Vue d'Afrique. Du lundi au vendredi de 15h à 16h, temps universel.
Darubini ya Afrika na I am Henry Shakif.
Jumuiya ya maendeleo ya kusini mwa Afrika SADC imeanza kuondoa vikosi vyake vya kulinda amani kutoka maeneo ya mashariki mwa Jamhuri ya Kidemokrasia ya Kongo DRC kupitia nchi ya Rwanda. Hii imekaje?
Kinachojionyesha sasa tayari jumuiya ya kusini mwa Afrika SADC imeanza kuelemewa kwanza na gharama kubwa za kuongoza operation za kijeshi kule mashariki mwa Kongo.
Hii inaleta tafsiri gani haswa katika nchi za Afrika ambazo ziko ndani ya machafuko hivi sasa? Hii inaleta tafsiri gani haswa kwa mataifa ya Afrika?
Cha kwanza kwenye diplomasia, tafsiri ya kwanza ni hitaji nchi kutatua matatizo yao wao wenyewe. Mfano kinachoendelea Sudani Kusini, kinachoendelea Kongo, Rwanda, Uganda.
Darubini ya Afrika 11 kamili hadi 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
The Women of Stature Foundation is a South African organization that goes above and beyond to support and empower female entrepreneurs in the country, including supporting them with access to funding for their businesses. The interview will focus on the Foundation's Professional Collective Summit for 2025, which is taking place next month on the 3rd. And joining us is the founder and chief executive officer of the Women of Stature Foundation, Charlotte Du Plessis. This afternoon, welcome to Africa in Business. Good to have you with us.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it and look forward to our little chat.
No, definitely. Could you tell us more about your organization, the Women of Stature Foundation?
Yes, with the greatest of pleasure. Absolutely. Well, as we as women, we have to stand our ground and we have to show our support and, supporting one another is essential. And of course, the foundation does exactly that. So over the last 13 years, that's what I've been doing. I've been empowering women. I've been supporting them in every which way we can. And then, of course, in 2018, I decided I would formally register a non-profit organization, and we actually are all about giving women the opportunity to learn more and to be supported. And we focus primarily on women who are in business, entrepreneurs, women that are wanting to make career changes and don't know where to go and what to do. So we're really all about, just exchanging information with them, and we've got training and development programs running. And just all round, it's emotional support, it's business support, and wherever we can help a woman, we know that we're helping a whole family.
And whole communities as well. I mean, I'm looking at your speaker profile here. You've got South African author Nonkululeko Koboto as the headline speaker at the summit. Talk to us about what informed your choice of speakers and what it is that you hope women will come out of the summit having gained.
Well, first and foremost, I so respect Ma'am Nonku. We know, of course, that she is an icon in South Africa, being the first black female chartered accountant, and then going on to be the founding partner of one of the largest African-owned audit firms. Now, as I say, I've had a wonderful relationship with her over the years, and in fact, this year we awarded her with a Lifetime Achievement Award at our annual awards because of what she stands for. She's a pioneer, she's a visionary, she's a mentor, and yes, as you say, she's also now an author. And yes, I invited her to be our keynote. I believe that she can be of great inspiration to all women. Given the fact that she also has her own story to tell, and that's exactly what her book is about, Awaken to My True Self. And I think that is a reflection of celebrating yourself, the courage, and her remarkable spirit of resilience. And that was why I invited her. And then, of course, we have other exceptional women who are also, leaders in their industries. They are, thought leaders. They're captains of industry, and we are looking forward to an exceptionally, well-rounded whole event, which is our theme is wholeness, the optimum you.
And the foundation will be hosting the Professional Collective Summit for 2025 next month. You've just highlighted the theme, which is wholeness, the optimum you. How does that align with professional women today?
Well, the thing is that I know for a fact, just take myself as an example. I wear many hats. I play many roles in a day. You're a wife, you're a mother, you're a professional career woman, you're building a business, and you just have all these balls in the air, and you like juggling from one job to the next in one day. And I thought, for me as a woman, I'd like to bring this opportunity to the fore to say, let us sit around a table and let's discuss all these roles that women have to play in one day, and how do you stay whole? How do you actually manage to stay standing? And so we really want this the whole day to encompass just igniting, deep conversations. We're going to have some creative exchange of ideas, and just looking at how we can support one another spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, and practically. So it really is a circle of empowerment.
It really is. It sounds like it. We thank you so much for your time and wish you continued success on your endeavors. Thank you so much, Ms. Charlotte Duplessis.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
And have a good one. Thank you, ma'am. She is a founder and chief executive officer of the Women of Stature Foundation, Charlotte Duplessis. She takes us to exactly 4:54.
Ahoy, matey!
Captain here to help, right, boys?
Set sail with us on a digital voyage like no other. Channel Africa has a treasure trove of awesomeness. That is our website and social media pages.
Tell me, why are you here?
We want you to be part of our adventure.
The winds are changing, Captain. And this time...
Imagine a world where curiosity knows no bounds, where entertainment meets enlightenment, and where every click leads to the African perspective. This Green Market with Thami Ngubeni. The African Perspective on Channel Africa.
Channel Africa.